Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, hello everybody. Welcome aboard. Hope you're having a great day, a good week. Happy Thursday. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition joins me as he does as well. Another great show planned as well. John, the producer, is along. Matt Taylor should be here. Chris Denari. Am I missing anyone, John?
Kyle Neddenriep, I think. I don't know if you said him or not.
Kyle Neddenriep. Forgot about it, Kyle. So we'll catch up on what's going on across the high school landscape as well. Basketball continues in the Big Ten. Bubble teams, Dustin. Bubble teams. Indiana's one of them, but Rutgers has jumped into the fray. They have 4 quad one wins, I think, if I'm correct. They've beaten 4 consecutive ranked teams or something.
Yeah. Four straight wins over ranked teams. They could get a 5th. They go on the road this weekend to play Purdue. They've already beat them once at Jersey Mike's Arena on that incredible shot by Ron Harper Jr. But I think that Rutgers has 6 or 7 quad one wins. It's one of the most highest tallies in the Big Ten. But they've won. They've played incredible basketball lately. I mean, you watch that team play when you got Ron Harper Jr., Geo Baker, Cliff. I can't pronounce his last name. We'll call him Cliff O.
Amore. I like it.
Cliff Amore. That's his name. Cliff Amore. Paul Mulcahy. I mean, first of all, some great names on that team. But the way they play defensively and when they're shooting the ball well, as you've seen, there's nobody that can beat them. They are a really good team, and it makes you wonder. Obviously, they were without Geo Baker for a portion of the season, which is why they have some of those quad 3 and quad 4 losses on their resume. But at the same time, when they're at full strength, and right now Steve Pikiell's got that team playing as well as any team in the country right now.
They have. Unfortunately, they may have suffered a loss that we'll see if Ron Harper Jr., originally it looked like he hurt a finger, but I was rewatching a BTN, the Big Show, whatever, and I think they're calling it a hand injury. Not sure if they'll have him for Purdue, which I'm sure that they will need him. But
yeah, that's going to be
4 straight wins over ranked teams. That certainly propelled them into the conversation, which I don't know. It's a good thing for Indiana because I don't know that you want more teams that are fighting for a spot out of the Big Ten now that Indiana is in the area of fighting for a spot. I'm trying to think where the latest. I need to pull up Mike DeCourcy's latest bracket.
I think Mike had Indiana at 11.
11. I was
10,
going to say
10
11.
or 11. Yeah.
I was going to say I think it's 11, which means there's only up. There's no more down. 11 is about the bottom. You hit 11, you go below that, you're out. So it's on the Hoosiers, but of course we know that the destiny is in their own hands. Whether or not they respond, I think that they will. They just gotta come together as a team, man. I have just seen such great team play at times, and they're successful. And when they're not successful, it's pretty easy to see. They go away from what works. Don't know why.
Right. Well, that's been the problem down the stretch of some of these games, right? Like you saw it against Wisconsin again. Their offense did not look like their offense in those final, whatever it was, 2 minutes when Wisconsin made that push. Now, obviously, Johnny Davis played incredible, and I think he might be the National Player of the Year top candidate right now. I know there's some other really good players out there, but At the same time, Indiana can get better shots. They were able to get some good looks. They were able to get leads on Wisconsin throughout the course of the game, and they just it looked like, you know, what we had seen the previous 4 seasons about this team finding ways to lose games. And you can't have that down this stretch because, as you mentioned, Jim, you've got Iowa, who's on – I would consider them firmly in right now, but they could be a bubble team. Michigan is playing a lot better right now than they were earlier this season. Rutgers is obviously coming in off the bubble. So you have potentially 3 teams there that could, if they play well and continue to play hot down the stretch, they could nudge Indiana out of the picture. So you have to win – you don't have to beat Ohio State, but you better – win the games that you're supposed to, and that includes what they got: Maryland, Minnesota, maybe Rutgers still left on the schedule. So you're going to have to win some games, win the games you're supposed to if you want to keep your spot in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. There's no question of that. I think Indiana is going to have to win a game in the Big Ten tournament because they're not going to win all of they're not going to win at Purdue. That's not an expected win. I don't expect them to do that. That's expecting anyone to go there and win right now is tough. So, but there are games that they just have to win. And we've talked about this over and over. Their remaining schedule, they've got home games against Rutgers. There you go. Okay. Rutgers is a hot team. You beat them, that helps your own cause. You're on the road at Minnesota. Need to win that game. You got to buck up, tough up, and win a road game. And you got Maryland at home, a team you've already beaten. There's 3 games that they can win. They don't have to beat Ohio State. You're not expected to win. They're a ranked team on the road again. So you've got 5 games left. You need to win 3 of those. And those are 3 easily winnable games. 2 of them are at home. No excuse not to win either of those home games. And to be honest with you, if you want in the tournament, there's not an excuse for this team not to beat Minnesota at Minnesota. If you can't do those 3 things, you don't deserve to be in the tournament at this point. You put yourself in a position of that. I'm not saying this is not a tournament-worthy team. It is, but they have to do what they need to do to get there. Hopefully they can do that. They're healthy. Well, minus Rob Finney, of course. But they have to continue to play at a high level, but they've got to get their offense together, man. They're just so discombobulated when the rotation changes. It's like the offense changes, the attack changes. The other night, they should have never stopped going to the post. I don't want to beat this dead horse to death, but the bad substitution was made of taking everybody out at the same time. Michael Durr was in. They should have just kept doing the same thing. Keep pounding the post. They had guys, Wisconsin was getting in foul trouble. They couldn't stop it. Keep that confidence going. He didn't do it and just completely went a different direction. Xavier Johnson puts up 16 shots, of which he hits 3. Smart basketball. This team has to play smart basketball if you want to win. And they don't always do that.
No, they don't. And it's been a pretty consistent theme throughout the last 4 games, all 4 losses. And now what I'm wondering is we talked about the games they have to win. Does this create some sort of a spiral effect where if they lose to Ohio State, a week or 2 ago, I would have told you, yes, Indiana's going to beat Maryland. They're going to beat Minnesota. Now, if they lose to Ohio State and go 5 straight, and then I don't know. Maryland's playing with absolutely nothing to lose. And all of a sudden, Indiana starts to think we can't get over the hump again. So you can't let these losses continue to spiral out of control, because if you lose one of those games, Maryland or Minnesota, I think you're then at that point, you're probably out of the tournament. So you've got to figure this stuff out. I don't know about if Mike Woodson needs to switch up the rotation. That's not my call, but you've got to play to your strengths. And I don't think they've been doing that these past 4 games. They played well against Illinois. They had a chance. That's a game that, Illinois is a really good team, But as you said when we talked about this last week, Jim, that Northwestern game, that's a team they should have beaten even when they were shorthanded. They should have beat Wisconsin last night. They should have beat Wisconsin twice. They should have beat Penn State. There's so many ifs, ands, and buts. And part of that is just college basketball. You're going to lose some games you're supposed to win. That's just how the sport works. But at the same time, it's become a consistent theme for this team. And at some points we thought maybe that's just a blip on the radar. This is a team still learning. Now after these last 4 games, you're kind of wondering, okay, how much has this team really grown in just one season?
Yeah, that's how much have they? That's a great question. I don't know that they've grown a lot. They're different. It's definitely a different team. They're different defensively. They're great defensively. They still still
they are.
Still, I mean, that's what is putting them in such great positions. In the last game, their defense put them in such a great position, and their offense, their defense walked them right in the front door, and their offense walked them right out the back door, if that makes any sense. Man, they smothered them and then turned around and took the blanket off of them. It's like, okay, that was a magic trick. You got to do both, man. You've got to do both. You've got to learn to play that same intensity on both ends of the floor, but smartly. Not what's best for the team. What's best, how especially against this particular team. They don't seem to play with the best basketball IQ sometimes. And I'm not saying that they're not intelligent. They're not doing. You have to recognize flaws in a team and how to exploit those. And they did that against Wisconsin for a good part of the game, but then they let them breathe again.
Do you know what I think the biggest problem for this team would be? Is it's not just the scoring. To me, it's who's the leader. And there might be an issue with who's the leader. Xavier Johnson might think he thinks he needs to be the one down the stretch hitting shots. Trace Jackson Davis might think the same thing. Parker Stewart might think he's the guy. So what I'm getting at is when you have that kind of, like, let's look at Purdue, for example, right? Because it's the best example I've got. Down the stretch and on the final possession, Jaden Ivey is going to get the basketball. Everybody, on Purdue's roster knows that that's going to be the goal, is to get Jaden Ivey the basketball. If you put Indiana in that same situation, you might get 5 different answers as to who's going to get the ball on the final shot. And so that's why I think it crushes this team late in games, because there's no clear, not just a go-to guy, but there's like a confusion as to who the leader of this team is. And so everybody's then trying to get their shot and be that guy. And I don't think it's selfishness. I just think it's a lack of awareness as to who the leader is, what you want to run, and it just messes up your entire offense. So I think that what needs to happen is somebody, whether it's Mike Woodson or a player, needs to stand up or say, you know what, this is what we're going to do in the final 2 minutes. This is our plan. This is how we're going to attack. And obviously the tempo of the game dictates a lot of that. If there's a hot hand, you want to go to that guy. But when you've lost so many of these games in the same fashion, to me that says there's no leader. There's no guy down the stretch that we think the offense has to run through him, allow him to make the decisions. To me, that's the biggest problem.
Well, that's dead on. This team does not have a leader. They have a great Trace Jackson Davis is their most you think of him as their best player, but that does not mean leader. They don't have a leader. It's part of what happens in Chicago, to be honest with you. They don't have a leader. And then when they're on the floor, they don't have a leader, even when there should be. When Xavier Johnson and Trace Jackson Davis are both on the floor, this team still doesn't have a leader. You never know who's really. It's a patchwork deal, and it's going to be a patchwork deal for another season, to be honest with you. And I don't say this a lot, but until this staff gets their guys in there at all the positions, I don't know how right now it's really patchwork. You had to bring Xavier in. Is that the best they could do? Well, probably. And it's not that he's bad. He's a talented kid. He's quick. He's great defensively. He gets in some foul trouble, but it's not that you've done bad there. But they don't always come together. It seems like they're not on the same page, and that's a problem with this team. We've got to take a break. Back with more, of course, brought to you by our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, located at Patterson and Rogers, right here in Bloomington. You talk about incredible food. It is amazing. Great place to grab a bite. If you're living in Bloomington, go by. If you're not, make sure you stop by before or after the games. Of course, that's where you can also find Inside Indiana Basketball each Monday night at 7:05 with Don Fisher and Mike Whitson. Don't forget Southern Stone Restaurant. We're back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration or...
All right. Hey, little news, Jim, if you can hear me still. It's not like it's breaking or whatever, but I've seen people post about this morning. Former Indiana player DeMarlo Belcher, football player, passed away yesterday, unexpectedly. And if you're talking back, I know you're far away, I can't hear you, but I meant to mention that earlier. It is pouring down rain here. It's kind of nice. I don't mind rain sometimes.
He just played a couple years ago. Was there a cause of death?
It said unexpectedly. I haven't read too far into it, but I saw Martha the Mop Lady post something about it. And there was another post of some sort, but I didn't dig too deep into it. But he played under Kevin Wilson, I believe. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. What's up?
Good morning, Matthew. Man, I have
brought to you by Southern Stone.
I've got
going to be brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. I forgot to switch it.
That's okay, but I've got an envelope. Well, but I've got an envelope that's been sitting in my pocket. It's got like 3 Psalms cards in there. I've got to get a stamp to send you.
Well, let's go. I appreciate it.
I'm a lazy man. I'm sorry.
You are not a lazy man. You're the hardest working man in independent radio. Wow.
I like that, but that doesn't flow very well. The hardest working man in independent radio.
Matt, I've been meaning to ask you this question for a while. Did you know did you go to school with Matt McKean? Hey, Matt McKean?
Yes.
Okay. I used to work with him at we used to call high school basketball games up in like Lafayette area.
He went to Monticello High School, didn't he?
Yeah, Twin Lakes. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yep.
Man, I'm so jealous of Matt's sound. It sounds like he is in like
he easily has the best sound setup of anybody that comes on.
His sound, he sounds better than I do, doesn't it?
It's close. You're all close.
That ain't hard.
Man.
All right, 10 seconds. Here we go.
Of course, I'm at microphone-wise even.
We should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, #1 for a reason. The best deals are found there. You can get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Brought now Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. How are you, sir?
What's going on? I'm waking up. I don't know how you guys do this morning radio stuff. I'm not a morning person. This is hell, it's almost 9 o'clock and it's still a struggle for me. I don't know how you guys do this starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't get going until about noon.
Well, it's all day deal for me. Plus, my favorite thing is having a late night Indiana game, like the night before last. That I get home and I am in Bloomington, and I crawl in bed at 1:30. That's the fun ones, or better yet, the road games, the 9 o'clock road games that I go to, and then get to do the show. It's always fun, but you know what? It could be digging ditches, right?
That's what I say. Yeah, I just in the morning, like when we're getting the kids ready and shuffle them out of the door, like I just give my wife a series of grunts and looks, because I'm not a morning person. I don't have much to say until about noon. I don't transform into anything coherent until about lunchtime.
Oh, I haven't either. Don't you notice? Most people do. How have you been, man?
Been good. Things are kind of, with the Super Bowl last Sunday, obviously every NFL team here now is officially in the off season. So it's just kind of crazy the way the NFL schedule and the off season works. I mean, just when you think it's going to go away, now that we've had the championship game, you think things are going to die down. Nope. I mean, the NFL combine's in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, you've got NFL free agency. And then about a month after that, you've got the draft. So between now and the end of April, this is the major acquisition time for, player movement in the NFL. So it's going to be a really interesting time around the league. Obviously, it's going to be an interesting time with the Colts because they've got a lot of, questions and, some things that are swirling around a little bit. And I think with fans, they look at this period of time with just as much interest, looking at the business side of the NFL, just as almost as much as they do with, playing games in the months of, October, November, December. So it's going to get really, really busy, and the NFL it's the beast that never sleeps and never completely goes away. And that's why it's such a popular sport.
Well, I was going to say, Matt, one of the things, Matt, that always catches me by, I don't know why it catches me by surprise. I've been doing this a long time now, but, we always say college football and college basketball never sleep because you're constantly recruiting. There's always something going on that front. But in terms of actual events, you have the NFL, basically from August through mid-February, and then you have everything that you just mentioned, the combine, pro days, you have the NFL draft, free agency, then you get, back to summer camp. It's truly the NFL markets itself better than any other league in professional sports, at least in this country. And it's just so well placed throughout the course of the year. It's just, you never really truly realize how it's a constant in constant motion until you're writing about it every single day.
No, that's it. And it, to be honest with you, it's tough to be strategic about when to take time off because like you said, there's always something kind of grabbing you back and pulling your attention back to the NFL and player movement and free agency. And obviously the draft. I mean, the draft is the lifeblood of the NFL. There's just always something pulling you back to focus on your favorite team, or if you're a fantasy football player or whatever, you're constantly paying attention to the movement and the news and the news cycle around the National Football League. And, I think this time of year, college basketball and the NBA, those things, start to creep back up and take over. And I think they do to a degree, but they never really dominate because hell, even during March Madness, right? That first weekend of the NCAA tournament, which is so, sacred. We all love that tournament, right? I mean, most of us, take Friday off and watch basketball and we fill out our brackets. But even during those games, right, you're watching the broadcasts and you've got the crawl on the bottom of the screen and it's always breaking news. It's always breaking news, NFL free agency. You've got, Jason Pierre-Paul signs with the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's going here, or, Aaron Rodgers is going there now. So even when you're watching basketball in March, the NFL is literally at the bottom of the screen, diverting your attention away from the game. So it's just a fascinating league. And to your point, they've been very strategic about placing things, about a month apart. And every month of the calendar year, you've got something, right? You've got the playoffs in January, combine in March, Super Bowl February, draft in April. In May and June, you've got OTAs, offseason workout program, mini camps. Really, the only closest, the closest thing to the dead time in the NFL is between mid-June and the end of July. But hell, even that's only, basically 5 weeks. And then we all know it's coming after that. It's just, it's the ramp up for training camp and the preseason. And then it's just football overload, 24/7. So it's a very interesting thing that the NFL has done. And I know other leagues have tried to replicate it, but football is football. And with the rise of fantasy football and just the popularity of the league and the fact that it's an event, right? It's only once a week, whereas basketball, you play a couple games, and these NFL football games, they only play 17 of them, and that's the equivalent of 10, 11 Major League Baseball games. That's the equivalent of a 4 or 5 basketball games if you're comparing it to an NBA schedule. So that's why it's so popular, is because the games mean so much, and you have a week to hype them up between Sundays.
And one thing I wanted to hit on too about the in regards to the Super Bowl is we looked at Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow, and I think when you look at that matchup, it's probably the matchup of two of the most likable quarterbacks, at least right now, that we've seen, maybe since Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. I'd have to go back and look at some of those particular matchups, but there's always guys rooting against Tom Brady or, whoever might be on the other sideline. Cam Newton, had his haters. But I want to ask an interesting question of this, because Joe Burrow has been already compared to a guy like Tom Brady, not in maybe the fact that he's going to be the greatest of all time, but in the fact that, he was a guy that early in his Ohio State career, it was like, maybe this guy can get to the NFL, but, maybe not. And he's already taken a Bengals franchise that had struggled for decades to win playoff games to the Super Bowl in his second season. But I wonder how quickly he's beloved right now and seems to have the nation, wrapped around his finger. But I wonder how quickly that's going to change into maybe that kind of hatred we see from Tom Brady, because I think Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are here to stay, and they'll be a regular team in the playoffs and maybe the Super Bowl. So it's just going to be interesting to me. I mean, do you kind of get that same vibe the way he when you're a constant winner in the NFL, typically those things tend to turn quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I hadn't thought about that, because, like you said, Joe Burrow is, so fresh, and the thing about the NFL in the past 24 months, you look at what the league has lost in terms of faces of the game, right? You've lost Roethlisberger, you've lost Brady, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers. And then you've replaced them with guys like Patrick Mahomes, and who's already won a Super Bowl, and Herbert, and all the guys in the AFC. You've got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, who's already won an MVP, and the league has just replaced him. So who's going to take over the role of the hated Ben Roethlisberger? And you don't get to that point, to your point, Dustin, unless you win. But I do think, and I don't know, I don't know if this makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but I don't know if Joe Burrow will get to the point where he's despised, even if the Bengals, let's say, go on to win a couple of Super Bowls and they're in the AFC Championship game every year, which I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, what New England did, whatever the number was, they played in 9 consecutive AFC Championship games, and they played in 10 Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowls, won 6 of them with Brady. I just don't think you're going to see that level of success ever again. I just think it was that special. And quite frankly, too, the AFC East was so god terrible that they took advantage of that and won division championship after division championship, clinched home field advantage all the way throughout, because they just took advantage of a terrible division that couldn't figure it out. The AFC North
rule was
like
not
that.
so stupid. This could all change too. That fumble had been called a fumble like it should have been. That first Super Bowl never happens.
So I don't think you're going to see that level of success with the Bengals. I agree with you. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going to be a really good team for a long time, but I don't think you're going to see them consistently in the AFC Championship game, to the point where what the Patriots were doing. Plus Tom Brady is just like, he's got it all. And people hate that, right? He's a good-looking guy. He's
Right.
got, the best coach in the game on his sideline. Now he won despite that, but you get what I'm saying. He's got the supermodel wife. He's just got this charmed life that people just really kind of got turned off of. And plus he was in the Super Bowl every year, and people just got tired of that and what the Patriots meant to the Colts' success and blocking their road to championship. So plus Joe Burrow, and I know it's fresh, right? He's only in year 2, but I mean, hell, in the Super Bowl, he's going up to guys in the Rams defense and shaking their hands and introducing himself. And he's just being very respectful, and he's treating the game with a lot of reverence, and he's just doing the right things and saying the right things and being, the franchise face of the Bengals right now. And hell, that
how
could
refreshing
change.
is that? How refreshing is that?
But those things tend to disappear, and the more success you have, it's human nature to get a little bit more arrogant and cocky. I don't think that'll happen with Joe Burrow, because I think he's a very grounded and he's just a really good person. But I think that's why we hated Brady, because of the evil empire with the Patriots, their long-term success, their sustainability. I don't think you're going to have that with the Bengals. But I tell you what, Joe Burrow is that good to take the Bengals where they want to go, despite not having all the pieces on their team around him in place. I mean, that offensive line was terrible.
Awful.
He got sacked 9 times in a playoff game and still won. That's how good he is. So he's a really likable guy, in my opinion, a guy that's easily you're able to root for him, but winning and just being there all the time tends to kind of change fan feelings, to your point, Dustin.
Are you going to be the next quarterback for the Colts, or will Carson Wentz stay in this? I know you don't know this answer, because that's the big secret. Or will Carson Wentz be back? Are they going to be able to do something different? No one knows that answer, but that is certainly a question that is on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's why this time of the year is going to be so fascinating, player movement. And I think the Colts are going to let it play out all the way up until free agency. I mean, the sports talk radio debate around here is, okay, if you're dissatisfied with the season that Carson Wentz just turned in, that's fine. It's kind of like the housing market right now, right? I mean, everybody thinks they can just sell their house for a boatload of money, but then you have to go buy a house, right? So where are you going to go? How much you're going to overpay? That's sort of the same debate that the Colts are having right now with Carson Wentz. If you move on from Carson, okay, fine, but who is it? Where are you going to turn to? Who's going to come in here and be an upgrade? And, if you look at the free agent options, if you will, at quarterback, it's not a list that's going to blow you away. So, and plus the Colts don't have a first-round pick in the draft. That's another caveat in it as well. So everybody wants to talk about how easy it is to move on from something, but then you got to make sure you got a backup plan that's, you can build upon, and that's just not an easy answer.
Well, and to that point,
Jim, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we know to your point, Matt, the Colts aren't really, like, to me, when you're looking to draft a quarterback, you might draft a backup guy, a guy you think is going to be the future. But typically when you go with the first round guy, it's not always the case, but it's almost like you're looking to be in that rebuilding phase. I don't think the Colts are rebuilding. They're just a couple pieces away from being a serious Super Bowl contender. So in my mind, that's why they have to either stick with Carson Wentz, or you've got to try to find an experienced, a veteran guy, because usually it's going to take a rookie some time to get accustomed to the NFL. And I know there's some exceptions to that rule, but where the Colts are at, I don't think drafting a quarterback, at least to be the long-term solution, is the answer.
No, I mean, and that's why this situation is so tricky, because outside of quarterback, which is, I mean, you can't downplay that at all. It's the most important position in American sports. And so with that said, despite that, though, the Colts are ready to go. I mean, I think, honestly, the Colts have a better roster top to bottom than the Rams. Now, the Rams have premium players at premium positions, which the Colts don't have. But if you just look at the Colts 1-53, it's a very well put together, roster in terms of depth. They've got, that's why they won that Arizona game on Christmas night, is because they had a boatload of guys on COVID, but the guys on the number 2s and number 3s, they stepped up and they played like starters. But they need more premium players at premium positions, right? They need left tackle, they need wide receiver, they need pass rush, and they need quarterback. So I think, again, this roster is pretty well put together, but you got to have a quarterback, and this team was close last year outside of a handful of games, but those handful of games obviously were very disappointing, and they left a really bad taste in the fans' mouth. It left a really bad taste in Jim Irsay's mouth, Chris Ballard, Frank Reich, right? So again, if you move on from Carson Wentz, where are you going to go? And can you assure yourself an upgrade at that spot? And it's just it's a hard thing to do right now, because, that move for Carson Wentz last season or last offseason, that was a move that you made not doing it for just 1 year. You don't give up a first round draft pick for a guy that's going to be here for 1 year. So that's why, all the movers and shakers at the end of the season, they were not very definitive. They didn't offer a ton of support. They're going to let it play out. And I still think everything's on the table right now. If you put a gun to my head and say, is Carson Wentz going to be back next year? I'm probably going to have to take that bullet to the head, because quite honestly, I think it's 50-50 right now, because the Colts are just letting this play out in terms of trades, free agency, things like that. And, Carson Wentz, I think, can still be a good quarterback, but he's got to have a more consistent offseason, right? He got hurt in the preseason during training camp. That hurt. So like the first month of the season, when the schedule was just a gauntlet, it was almost like training camp 2.0. So he wasn't, as good as he was at the middle of the point of the season. And then towards the end of the season, unfortunately, he just fell off the cliff, and the Colts missed the playoffs after having a 98% chance of making the postseason after that win on Christmas night against Arizona.
Matt, how's the family doing, man? Now that you're in the off season.
Yeah, family's good. Family's good. Got the kiddos, and it's just pure chaos around here. A lot of screaming and yelling and playing, and just doing what toddlers do. So life is pretty good.
Well, what about the rest of the family besides yourself?
Yeah, exactly, right? Hey, I went to the game the other night on whatever night that was against Wisconsin. So,
I wish I'd have known we'd had you on the post game.
Yeah,
show.
it's kind of a last minute deal. Went down there, got in about 8:30. Went straight to the game. Went straight home. But still a fun experience. Still a fun environment. So I was glad I was able to make it.
Yeah, it was a tight game. Unfortunately, Indiana could not pull that win out. One that they could have won. Well, that was certainly a topic of conversation. But absolutely, man, I appreciate you as always, brother.
All right, my friend. Be well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. If you're looking for a deal, you know where to get it. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
An Evansville tradition for more.
All right, so what's the remaining schedule?
Kyle's supposed to be next. Then we have an off segment, and then we have Chris, and then an off segment.
Hold on. I'm writing this down, so you got to hold on.
Oh, okay.
9:10, 9:30 open. 9:50 is what, Chris?
It's Chris Denari. Yep.
Yeah. All right. And then 10:10 is open
at the end. Yep. Morning, Kyle.
Morning.
Hello, Mr. Neddenriep. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
Cannot complain. How's basketball going?
Good.
Is CJ Gunn looking as good as he sounds?
Had a pretty good game the other night, and then they got beat. Kind of lost. They had a 16-point lead and ended up losing. But he had a really good first half, and then kind of not as good second half. But yeah, he had a good game.
He is just
blew a big lead. Reminds me of someone.
Yeah. he just seems like he has improved so much over last year. At least scoring the ball.
Their team is a lot different because he's the main guy now. So, last year they had two Indiana All-Stars? No, one, and then a couple other guys who were all really good D1 players.
What else is going on with you, man?
Oh, not much. It's a lot of basketball.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
We're in girls sectional, right? I mean, a girls tournament right now, right?
Yeah, semi-states this weekend.
When does the boys start?
Sectional draw is Sunday, so 2 weeks.
I remember when that was such a big deal. It'd be on television.
Is it not anymore?
Well, it wasn't like it was.
Like the IHSAA network streams it or something?
Yeah.
Probably.
It was on TV a few years ago. It was on TV again, and then they just put it on their website, I guess. It's a all the radio stations carry it, but
All right, here we go. 15 seconds.
48 months. And you can always get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Thursday, brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you're in the home market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want and not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Welcome in Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, the Mr. High School Sports. How's it going, Kyle? I know you are a busy man.
yeah, going well. Good to see you guys this morning.
You as well. The busy time of year. We're in the midst of the girls basketball tournament, semi-state this weekend, sectional draw for the boys coming up on Sunday. The good thing is you don't have to worry about being on the bubble. You don't have to worry about making the tournament. Everybody gets to play. That's the one great thing about the Indiana high school tournament.
Yeah, you don't even know, who you play or your record doesn't matter. You throw it out the window and you put it all in the hands of the blind draw. So whether you like that or not, or probably depends on the sectional you're in and the situation you're in. But yeah, it'll all be there in front of us Sunday. I think it's 5 to 7. Seems like they extend the show a little bit longer every year, but yeah, it's a 2-hour show, and it'll be fun to see, especially some of these more competitive sectional brackets, where the draw really does matter a lot. In some cases, you might have to play 3 games instead of 2. And that's a pretty big, difference if you're in, sectional 10 or, sectional 8 where Carmel and Westfield and Zionsville, Fishers and all those teams are. Those will really, people will really be tuned in to see where those teams end up going on Sunday.
Do you think that there's a chance of seeding ever happening for Indiana high school tournament?
Yeah, it's been talked about. I mean, it's a question I get a lot, and that I ask the IHSA on occasion. I don't know that. I know the IFCA, the Football Coaches Association, put together a proposal not too long ago about having a seeding process, and I'd like to see it, but I'd like to see it more so in football, I think, and maybe just totally change the 6A and 5A in football, because it's different anyway when you have 32 teams instead of 64 teams, and just go north and south and seed them 1 through 16 on both sides. Now basketball, I don't think it matters as much because you can't, you're going to have to play geography based in your sectional, and you're playing multiple games in a week. So if you're trying to seed the sectional, that's one thing. I think in basketball, what you could maybe do is seed the top 2 teams and then blind draw the rest of it. That would be my preference. And then you could still do your blind draw show and all that. But then you seed the top 2 teams, give them something to play for during the season. Give them a little bit of a carrot.
Are you talking about the top 2 teams overall, or top 2 teams need sectional?
In each sectional, just so they don't play each other right out of the gate.
I think that would be perfect. That's all you need. You can't ask for more than that. I agree 100%. That doesn't need any more. It doesn't need to be any more difficult than that. Right there, boom. You just do the top 2, and that's all you need to do. Separate those 2. So number 1 is not playing number 2 on the first game of a 3-game sectional. That's what, and then the reward, you don't want that to be playing the next toughest team. So that's all that I think that they should get away from. And what you just suggested would solve that.
Yeah, I don't see where that. I'll mention that at times, and then people say, "Well, you have to play each other anyway." And it's like, well, why? Give them if you're in a really competitive sectional, and then you run into, well, how are you going to seed them? How are you going to decide? And I think the best answer to that is just to have the coaches do it. You get in a coaches meeting for the sectional, 6, 7 coaches in a room, and you figure out who the top 2 teams are. And I think in a lot of cases, it's going to be pretty obvious because you have a lot of head-to-head matchups between those teams anyway, because they're in, similarly, they play a schedule where they're playing each other head-to-head a lot. So, I think there's an easy way to figure that out, or the IHSA just decides, who the top 2 seeds are in each sectional, and then does their blind draw, and then you unveil it the same as you do now. You just have the top 2 teams seeded. I've given this opinion before, and I think that's something you could do, and I think it'd make the regular season a little bit more interesting. When you're trying to play for a little bit of something in the postseason. You're not playing for your life. You're going to be in anyway, but you're playing for a little bit of an advantage going into the tournament. So, that's something I think you could do. And I don't think that'd be a huge, but I don't know if people are clamoring for that anyway. I don't know if there's, you don't want to fix a problem that's not there. And I guess they feel like it's not a problem. So why change it? But that's something I think you could do. I think football to me, I think because you're only playing once a week, you're not going to be traveling all over the place. You could probably do, if you split North and South in 6A, you might have a Merrillville, Warren Central game, but it's only one trip. It's not multiple times a week you're traveling, across the state. So, I think you could really change football, and the travel's not going to be that bad. Basketball, I think you have to keep a sectional alignment, obviously. But I think you could seed potentially the top 2 teams and not change a whole lot.
Well, speaking of change, there is change coming, I believe, to the format for the regional and the semi-state. Has that been made official that change has been made?
No, it's been, it's something they're talking about. I think it probably will happen is my guess, or is my sense of that. They have to run it through the executive board, and I think probably still at this point get feedback from the membership on, is that something we want to do? I think Paul Neidig feels pretty strongly about it, and I think it does have some merit. I know some people are saying, well, then it changes the tournament success factor because you get a certain amount of points if you win a regional, and if you do it this way in a 1-game regional, you're obviously going to have a lot more teams winning a regional going into the semi-state round, but I think you could tweak that and just say, hey, the same number that you're earning now is you have to win 1 semi-state game to, that would make it the same as winning a regional now. So, I know that's kind of a convoluted thing to, you almost have to write it out to see what that looks like. But, I think there's a relatively easy fix to that. And I think, from their perspective is it gets you twice as many teams playing another week of the tournament. and maybe keeping a little bit of momentum going throughout the tournament, and I think
But is
that's
that what
one
it's
thing.
more about? It seems like, because I'm like, what benefit does it do the student athletes, or is this more about keeping more people involved, which brings in more money?
I think that's what it is. I mean, financially, it'd be a benefit to the communities that host the semi-state. And you could say, well, it's a negative to the regional round and those schools hosting the regional, and I guess it would be. But you would keep more teams involved in the tournament longer, which to me that makes sense. That aspect of it. I think ideally, to me, you would play a 2-game state finals like back in the old days it used to be, and you have maybe a 2-day at Bankers Light or Gamebridge, but there are problems with that too, because there's the Pacers play Friday nights a lot of times, and you might not be able to get a Friday night at Gamebridge, so that becomes problematic, and I don't think that will happen because of that reason. But yeah, I don't. To me, I think when I wrote that story and talked to Neidig about it, of course, you get all the negative. And it's not all negative, but immediately people come back at you, and that's like a lot of things. Immediately people are going to tell you what's wrong with that idea and how it never needs to happen. And I think that's sort of typical in our state where, we don't like change. We fear change a lot of times, but I think it does have some merit to me, I think, because you do keep teams around longer. And I do feel when you're covering the state tournament, I love the sectional. I love the 2-game regional. But then you sort of do lose some momentum, when you have a full week, Saturday to Saturday, regional to semi-state, and I think you feel it right now in the girls' tournament. You kind of lose a little bit of steam in the tournament. You're waiting so long to play, and there's not as many teams, and I do think I don't know if you lose interest, but you definitely lose some momentum. And I think people who are really invested as fans, not only of those teams playing, but just as fans of basketball, I think you do lose a little steam as you get from the regional to the semi-state round. So maybe this is a way to fix it. Maybe it's not. But I think it's worth looking at. I do think.
Well, we're getting close to the tournament time. Like I said a minute ago, several teams this is a kind of a different year in boys basketball, especially in 4A. There's not a dominant team. Carmel's had a lot of success, but they're not the dominant team. There is not a dominant team. There's kind of been a lot of flux at the top of your poll and just the top of the poll. Chesterton's been up there. I mean, they've been undefeated. Floyd Central beat Cathedral. Haven't talked to you since that happened. Probably a surprise to a lot of people in the Indianapolis area.
Maybe. Cathedral's had some ups and downs. They haven't really, and I hate to say that because, gosh, they've only got 5 losses on the season, but they've been a little bit up and down. They're probably the team when you talk about teams who, are at the top or teams who are talented. I had them second going into the season, just behind Carmel, who until somebody beats Carmel, you put them number 1, is my opinion. But Cathedral's been just kind of up and down. They're really talented, and Tayshawn Comer has got an injured ankle right now, and he's missed a couple of games. But, I do think when they have all their pieces together, they're as good as anybody. They just haven't played like it consistently. So, that's a team that they're going to be scary, I think, in the tournament. And, Fishers is the team right now. I've got number 1. They came back, beat Lawrence North I covered the game Tuesday. They were down 16 points and looked, CJ Gunn was just, filling it up in the first half. And then, Fishers finds a way to come back without Jalen Harrelson. He was out with a sprained ankle. He should be back Friday, but, they did it without him too. So I like that Fishers team. I think, them and Carmel in that sectional could be a really good matchup. And, I guess, again, with Fishers, you kind of have to, you favor Carmel just because they've done it so many times over so many years. But I think that is one team that could give Carmel some trouble potentially. But I agree with your, I think we've talked all season about that. And Chesterton still is number 1. They're 20-0, and they play Valparaiso on Friday, and that'll be a huge game up there in the region. So looking forward to seeing how that one comes out. But there's a lot. I'm going to see Mount Vernon on Friday. That's another team quietly, under the radar is really having a great season, and I think also could do a lot of damage. But there's about 10 to 12 and maybe even 15 teams, I think, this year that you legitimately would go into the sectional draw feeling like we have a chance if things go right. We could be holding the trophy at the end of the year. And I don't remember a season quite like that. I would have to rack my brain and go back and look, but I don't, normally there's a handful, but maybe not this many that have a real opportunity this year.
You just mentioned Mount Vernon, my Highlanders, Floyd Central down south, and then Chesterton up north. Man, that would be, if you could get a Final Four, something like that would be cool to have a true mix of northern, southern, all around, instead of just in that Marion County area, which of course I know a lot of Indianapolis fans don't mind that, but I like seeing when the state teams get involved.
Well, Floyd Central has got a really good route this year because, if you look at the southern two regionals, who would you pick? Floyd Central has a really good opportunity this year to make it to the semi-state. I mean, I was watching some of the highlights of their loss to Brownstown Central, and Jack Benner, man, what the sophomore had 37 points and they came back and beat Floyd Central the other night. But man, what a player he's going to be, or already is. But, regardless of that, they're in 4A, Floyd Central has a real opportunity. I know Jeffersonville's, they've got their full team back now, and they'll be tough, tougher than their record shows. And New Albany's always tough with their group they have, and Bivin with them, who's got over 1,000 points. But I really do think this is a good opportunity for Floyd Central to get all the way to the semi-state, and then you probably play whatever Indianapolis area team, and they've showed already they can beat Cathedral, so why not? I mean, if you're Floyd Central, you feel like it's a good year to be good in the South because there is an opportunity there. There's no big, top-ranked team like Bloomington South is sometimes, or and they're tough. They're always going to be tough. Bloomington North is also a talented team. So there's some good teams there, but maybe not the dominant team that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and you mentioned CJ Gunn. I know he's been doing well for Lawrence North. Of course, Lawrence North is not always not having the same season they had a year ago, but for CJ himself individually, he's having a really good season over last year. He's scoring a lot more. A lot of games I've seen him come alive in the fourth quarter. I know the other night was not his second half was not his deal, but he's done overall a really, really good individual season for CJ Gunn coming to Indiana next year.
Yeah, after he missed, I think, the first 4 games with the foot injury, he's really come out and played well. I mentioned to you off the air, he had a great first half. He had 15, I think, in the first half, and then ended up with 23. This is just – it's also, I think, fair to point out, a totally different team than they had a year. They're not as good. They're not as veteran. So he has more on his plate to try to score a lot, and we kind of knew that going into the year. Now his efficiency has been really good. I think at last check, he was 39.7% from 3, and that probably went up after his game Friday or Tuesday against Fishers. I think he was 4 for 7 or something. So I actually have it right here. I think he was 4 for 9 from 3. So pretty good, efficiency again in that game. And so he's been, he's had a season I think you'd expect. And honestly, if they make a run, I don't think the Mr. Basketball race is anywhere close to done. I mean, Fletcher Lawyer's having a great year, but Homestead, again, we talk about those 4A teams. They're not unbeatable, and I don't know that we'll see them beyond the regional if they make it to that point. They're a good, very good team, not to diminish them, but he's got to do a lot too. And, they're missing a ball handler probably, that could really help them. So again, if Lawrence North, and I think Lawrence North they have a legitimate chance to win that sectional. They're playing a lot better, regardless of how they finished the game the other night. They handled Fishers pretty well for 3 quarters. So, I don't count them out at all. I don't count out CJ, potentially to win Mr. Basketball either. His numbers are really good.
Yeah, I was going to say Mr. Basketball. It's a great subject because it is right there with who's going to win the state championship. There's just such a group where a lot of times Mr. Basketball is not defined, but there's usually a top 1 or 2 maybe 3. Man, there's a bunch of guys in this race, and it will also depend how much. See, the thing that I hate about these awards, where you could be talking about the Heisman, it has become more of a who's the better player on the better team award. It doesn't always happen, but too often or not, we see that happen. And how often do you see that kind of bleed into the Mr. Basketball?
I honestly think when you look back at the history of it, the voters normally get it right. I do think that, and last year Caleb First. I mean, he went out and earned it, and he played a really good, had a really good tournament, had a really good season, had a good career, and he kind of separated himself as the season went along, I thought. So normally I think the voter, you have so many voters for Mr. Basketball, media, coaches, that you have a good representation from a lot of people that they normally end up getting it right, in my opinion. I haven't always voted the same as the vote is gone, but that doesn't mean I had it right either. So I think for the most part, it does get in the right hands, I would think. And, a lot of times too, you're right. I mean, it does matter how you do in the tournament. I don't think it's the Heisman trophies have really become that, I think, is you're the quarterback for Alabama, that you're automatically at least one of the top 2 or 3. So I don't think it's anything like that necessarily. And this year will be different too, because I think, like I said, Fletcher Lawyer, I would probably slightly favor him at this point. But Homestead hasn't been, kind of like Cathedral. They've been a little inconsistent, and, I don't know if they're going to be playing beyond the regional. So, that door might open. There's a guy named Connor Asigan from Central Noble, and has had a phenomenal. He's all-time leading scorer in the county and the school, and going to Wisconsin, so he's a high-level player, and I think he's got a chance potentially to put his name in there if they make a run, and he's really good, super athletic. He's 6'4", and I know people probably don't know him really well statewide, but if they can make a run in 2A, then I think he's got a shot at it. But there's Braden Smith with his injury has hurt him some, not being able to play here the last 7 or 8 games. But yeah, the tournament will matter this year, and there's probably not the buzz there was last year with the Mr. Basketball, because you don't have as many. This class just isn't probably quite as deep as it was last year, and not quite as. I don't know what you want to see. It is a good class. It's not probably just quite as good as last year, so there's probably not quite the buzz about it. But I think it'll pick up as we get into the tournament.
Absolutely. What's on tap for this weekend for you?
I am going to go see Mount Vernon. Like I said, Friday night, they're playing New Pal, and it should be a good game. Yeah, New Pal's, I think, 15-5, so it should be competitive. And then I'm hoping to go see Saturday Edinburgh and North Davies, a little bit different. Two teams in 1A who are both having really good years, and should be a really good atmosphere, I think, at Edinburgh. I haven't totally finalized that yet. And then I got a couple feature stories I'm working on too, on a couple of players locally. So got quite a bit going on as usual, and it's a good thing.
Absolutely, and it's a good thing having you here. We appreciate it as always. Cal Neddenriep with the Indy Star. Make sure you're a subscriber. I am. Keep local papers going. Cannot thank you enough, brother. Appreciate you as always.
All right, no problem. Thanks, Jim.
You bet. Cal Neddenriep joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Start the new year out.
All right, you're going to have about 10-ish minutes before Chris.
All right.
Dustin,
10 minutes.
Earlier this week, we talked a lot about the Super Bowl halftime shows and had some fun with that. Did you enjoy it?
Oh God, yeah, it was awesome.
I figured, yeah, it was.
Who didn't?
Too. Well, some people, the older people that listen to your show, most of them didn't like it. That's kind of
well.
But wait, but what would you expect?
It's
here's the thing.
I don't mean that in a bad way, but I'm like, here's the thing. All right, if this is the entire audience from A to Z, they're going to try to please this big chunk in the middle.
Yeah,
this early
I don't
chunk
disagree with that.
are toddlers who don't matter. This little chunk are people that are older than a certain age that are not in that window. It's this gigantic window. It's just life. It's like everything.
That has to be such
it
a
is.
sad moment when you're too old to be a part of a target audience anymore. Isn't that sad?
Well, that's your choice to put yourself in whatever target audience you want to be, though.
I guess that's true.
We actually, if you want to watch a video, John, we actually talked about it on our Saturday Down South. We did like 15 to 20 minutes on the Super Bowl, and that took up probably 13 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Did you do any rapping?
Awesome. No, I did not.
What would be your rap name, Dustin?
Oh God, I don't know.
D. Schutte from the block.
There you go. I'm still Schutte from the block.
Spicy Schutte and the peppers.
There you go. That's a good one.
Spicy Schutte. That is a good one.
I saw the perfect meme for your comment, John, about people hating it, and it was like people age 1 to 29 were like, "What the hell is this?" Age 51 and
I enjoyed it.
People 51 and older were like, "What the hell is this?" And the people 30 to 50 were like, and it had an image of Snoop dancing.
I think the age that you get too young to really appreciate or enjoy Snoop Dogg and everybody else who was there are people who are still in high school right now and then younger.
Well, probably in college too. The comment that I made was like, and this is how you know that it was hitting that target audience, was I texted my buddy who used to make those burn those CDs. I don't know if you remember this, Jim.
Yeah, I do.
But you used to be able to burn CDs through
15 seconds, by the way.
And then LimeWire, and it would like that thing would just crash everything. I was like, this is like your all-time great burn CD from high school.
Oh my God, that's
right. Here we go.
Get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Thursday. Brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. We're located right off of I-65 down there in southern Indiana. If you're down that way, stop in. They got about 55 big old TVs surrounding great fresh food and cold beer. We were in a break. We were talking about the halftime show and the target audience. And, it is what it is. It's like there was maybe was it this season? I think it was. There was, or I think it was last season. There was a week on Saturday Night Live where I did not know who the host nor the musical guests were. That was the first time I'm like, that's a first that I don't know who either is. And I'm like, it kind of sucked, but I'm like going, it's life. It's like, I just saw the snake pit at the Indianapolis Speedway back this year for the 500. They announced the lineup for the snake pit. I don't know who the hell any of those people are, but guess what? I'm not going to be in the damn snake pit. There's an age bracket that's intended for, and that's who they're seeing, man. I get it. I don't know every artist that 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are listening to, and I really don't give a crap. I don't have to know everyone now.
You know what's funny is growing up, I remember my dad would always listen to CDs from bands in the 70s and 80s.
You said LimeWire a minute ago. I haven't heard that word in 10 years.
I was going to say maybe even 15, 20 years.
Man.
But I remember growing up, my dad always listening to 70s and 80s rock and those CDs and those classic rock stations. And when I was younger, I was like, why do we always listen to this? It's the same stuff, yada, yada, yada. I didn't understand it. Now I get it because I don't listen to anything. If it came out after like my first or second year of college, I will not listen to it. I couldn't tell you outside of like the really popular singers, maybe some country artists, I couldn't tell you who sings what, especially on the pop circuit. Like country, I'm a little bit more up to date because I listen to a lot of country, but I get it. Once you get to a certain age, you're just like, these are the songs I like. This is the music I like. This is my era growing up, and I'm going to listen to it till the day I die. And you might be introduced to a new song here or there, but for the most part, if it's at post 2010, I probably don't know that song.
Well, you may know the song, may not know the artist.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised.
But life goes on, right? Life goes on. Let's see what happened last night in basketball. I'm trying to find the top 25 scores. Man, I can't. Where is that? Daggone it. Number one, Gonzaga. No problems with Pepperdine.
That's
Auburn
a shock.
beat Vanderbilt easily by 14. Purdue. Northwestern gave them a game, 70-64, but not close enough. Northwestern not getting enough done to get into the tournament this year, but Rutgers is charging. There's like 9 teams, I think, that are circulating
9
now. But that won't be the case. That's not how many is going to make it. Somebody's going to knock themselves out at the bottom. If you're an Indiana fan, hopefully it won't be the Hoosiers. Number 7, Baylor, was at number 11, Texas Tech. And Texas Tech handled the reigning national champions 83-73. Number 12, Illinois, went to Rutgers 70-59. Rutgers with the win. Big win for Rutgers. That's a marquee win. But they've beaten 4 straight ranked teams.
Yep.
That gets you noticed, man. That gets you in the tournament right there. Their record's not as great as they'd like for it to be, but they're certainly making a big time argument.
How about for the late night college basketball fans tonight? I mean, it's not going to be a good game tonight, but I don't know if you guys have been watching Arizona, but they are a really fun team to watch. And I know that, there's been some issues in the past with previous coaches there, but 22-2, number 3 in the country. They'll play a 3-win Oregon State team tonight, which is kind of baffling to me. I don't know the situation out in Corvallis, but they went from the Elite 8 last season and to now they've got 3 wins. But Arizona, that's a team to keep out. That's a Final Four team. I think that's might be my favorite to cut down the nets because they beat UCLA, they beat USC in back-to-back games. They've played really well recently. They've beaten Illinois. They've got some other marquee wins on their on the schedule. That's a really fun team. If anybody stays up late and doesn't mind, I love Bill Walton, but not everybody loves Bill Walton. If you don't mind the commentary from Bill Walton, check out Arizona. They are a really fun team to watch. And
not only that, their coach he came from Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
So you can easily see Gonzaga and Arizona at the Final Four, which would be a confirmation of what I'm forgetting his Gonzaga's coach,
Mark Few.
It's kind of a stamp because a lot of people, myself included, don't give Gonzaga the complete respect because they play a weak schedule. While they may add some other games, they still play in a weak schedule. I don't care. Their schedule would not be what it is if they played in the Big 10, the Big 12. You're going to lose road games in this league. I don't care who the hell you are. They don't have to deal with that. But that doesn't mean they're not good. But you can't get a true gauge on them. Although they should have been beaten by UCLA last year. They were lucky to get to the championship game, but they were in the Final Four. But that would be ironic to see Arizona and Gonzaga at the Final Four. Can you imagine them playing for the championship?
That would be incredible.
And
I mean, they're both going to probably
doable.
Get 1 seed.
It is very possible. Both because they're both. They're both going to be number 1 seeds.
Yeah, and you don't want to pick chalk, but I think you look at I mean, my bigger question is going to be, this is never how it works. I don't know why we prognosticate this stuff because it never turns out this way. But
Of course not.
you look at Arizona, and to me, they're more battle tested, obviously, because of the schedule they play. It's not just front loaded either. They have to play these teams throughout the course of the season. And last year, nobody was talking about the Pac-12 last year, and they had a chance to get, I think, 4 teams into the Final Four. Like, they were playing extremely good basketball in the NCAA tournament, a lot better than the Big Ten and the ACC.
Was tough. Yeah,
they were really tough. Everybody slept on them, and so I just think Arizona's more battle tested. But we've seen Gonzaga make these deep runs where they've been in the championship game now twice. So what they're doing is working. It's at some point, I think Mark Few, it would be I don't want to say a travesty, but I think he deserves to win a national championship. It's just like
deserves got nothing to do with it, baby.
Because you just can't gauge them because of the schedule. You just don't know how well they're playing. You can look at the final score, but what does that really tell you?
Well, we'll talk about it more later. Michigan's at Iowa tonight. We'll talk about that later as well. Coming up next, our good friend Chris Denari and the Pacers. See what they're up to. Give Dustin something to talk about. Listen to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration. Good morning, Mr. Denari. How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you guys?
I'm doing fine. Dustin's in his yellow as always.
And nobody beats the Pacers 8 straight games in a row.
No, that's right. I'll tell you what, I said this. Quinn and I taped something for our Saturday morning weekly radio show that the Pacers air. The atmosphere, the last 3 games for a team that's 20-40 has really been remarkable. I mean, you always hate to see trades made at times, but this is what the Pacers needed. They needed a sort of a clean slate. And I think people are really excited. I mean, we have ways to go, but I mean, not this year, of course, but I think they've done a good job.
I agree.
I mean, at this point, you're playing with house money.
Don't waste all your good stuff.
Well, that's true. There's not much left. I think that based on the things I've seen on Twitter, fans were just happy that the franchise is dedicated to making progress and winning and not keeping the same stale product on the floor, that has rejuvenated.
Yeah, I think the worst thing you can be is bad and boring.
Right.
if you're not a good team, but there's excitement, I mean, there's the way you play is not boring. That's a whole lot better. But if you're bad, if you're not very good and you're boring, that's a bad combination.
Right.
You know who was at our game last night was Chris Mack.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, I talked to him before the game. He was there with his little boy.
Is he looking for a job?
I think he wants to get back in. I said to him, I could see you doing something in the NBA one day. He goes, no, I don't think so. He goes, I'm a college guy. Or he said he could retire. Because he was surprised. He and I were talking. His first year of college was my first year doing Butler, and Thad Matta was on that team. So we were talking about Thad, just getting back into it, if you will, at IU.
Gotcha.
All right,
Yeah, that
we'll go
would
ahead and
make
bring us
sense.
back in.
You like the little green box from Brinker's Jewelers. Hi, I'm Kyle Brinker from Brinker's Jewelers. This Valentine's Day, tell the one you love how much they mean to you with one of our hand-selected, unique, beautiful, and high-quality jewelry items that are ready to be put in that little green box from Brinker's Jewelers. Valentine's Day will be here before you know it, so don't wait until the last minute. Come into Brinker's Jewelers, voted the Tri-State's best jewelry store 9 years in a row, located at the corner of Green River Road and the Lloyd Expressway.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday. It looks like a rainy Thursday. The rain hitting central Indiana. Not quite yet, but looks like it's coming. But that's okay. Warmer temperatures. I'll take it. I'll take some rain and 50-degree temperatures all day. Chris Denari with us from Indiana Pacers now. How are you, sir?
Hey, good. I hate to tell you, Jim, but I'm heading to warmer temperatures literally when we get done with this. All-Star break is here. My wife and I were going to head to Myrtle Beach, where our oldest son and his fiance live. So there should be some golf over the next week or so, I'm sure. So, yeah, so I'm escaping the rain. At least it's 50 degrees here in Carmel right now. So it's not bone-chilling cold.
What is it? I wonder what the temperature is down there in Myrtle Beach right now. What's the forecast going to be?
My son said on the day we're leaving, I think on Wednesday, it's supposed to be 82. So I think it's going to be in the 70s, high 60s, 70s. That's more than fine by me.
Absolutely. That works. Congratulations. Hey, good for you. I'm happy for you. I know what it's like to try to sneak in and get those little days here and there. Pacers, for a team that's not winning, there's positive buzz around this program. And we were talking about it off air, and it's because everyone knows that the Pacers don't tank. The losses are legit, but they also know that they're doing something about it, that they're trying to do something about it, and they see that something is being done about it.
Yeah, they made a number of one major trade. I guess you could say two. The first one was Karis LeVert to Cleveland for the expiring contract of Ricky Rubio and Cleveland's first-round pick, meaning the Pacers will have 2 first-round picks this summer. And where the Pacers are right now with their own record, that could easily be a top 5 pick. And then they made the blockbuster, if you will, trading Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, and Jeremy Lamb to Sacramento, getting Tyrese Halliburton, who was all rookie a year ago, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. Now, we found out last night after Thompson had 17 points, the Pacers today are waiving him so that he can sign with a contender. I'm sure that was an arrangement that was made. He's a veteran, and he's going to sign with Chicago. But the two pieces that the Pacers really wanted in that trade, one was Halliburton, and he has not disappointed in his first 4 games. And Buddy Hield's a career 40% three-point shooter. And then probably the trade that I'm really intrigued by is seeing Jalen Smith. You guys following the Big Ten watched him at Maryland. He was drafted number 10 by Phoenix a couple of years ago. Really didn't factor in because they're trying to win a championship, so they're really not into player development. And he has played very well for the Pacers in his first 4 games. He also played very well back in December and January when DeAndre Ayton was out for about 6 games. He averaged 15.7 rebounds. The crazy thing about this is Phoenix did not pick up his third year on his contract. So ultimately, he becomes almost a free agent. The Pacers can only pay him at the level of what his salary was. They can't go higher. So another team could give him a multi-year deal for more money. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm very bullish on Smith. He's a lot like Isaiah Jackson. He's a live wire. He's a pogo stick. He can shoot the basketball. So I think, Jim, to your point, people are really excited about the future. And, that's what you have to do. And, I just saw somebody post about the Pacers can only sign him for $4.5 million. You're correct. He's almost going to play too well for the Pacers to keep him. But you never know. I mean, you never know. Maybe there's an opportunity that he says, hey, I like it here. I'll take a shorter deal. We'll have to wait and see.
And you know what? I'll let Dustin take over in a minute because this is where he flies. But, I look at what the Celtics have done. And, they really made moves and, bam, it just propelled them.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Stevens really blew up his roster. Of course, he has 2 All-Stars in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I thought one of the key picks or the key trades he made, he got Derek White, who played at Colorado, who played for San Antonio. He's now coming off the bench. They had to get a little better on the bench, and that sort of cost Romeo Langford. They sent him San Antonio, right?
I think, yeah.
So they had to make some changes as well, just around their core, and they had won 9 straight prior to getting beat last night by Detroit.
You know what's interesting, and you talked about Jalen Smith, to me, is he's not really known as a three-point shooter, but I know he hasn't taken a lot, but already in 4 games he's shooting dang near 50% from behind the three-point line. I just think you look at this team and kind of the weapons they have, and of course, they're not fully healthy. We'll see what other moves come in the offseason with the NBA draft and everything. But again, I like this team is exciting to watch. It takes time for the chemistry, and I don't know that we're going to see that by the end of the season. But when you have some of the explosiveness of a Tyrese Halliburton, when you have a sharpshooter, to me, I think one of the biggest negatives for the Pacers this season was losing a guy like Doug McDermott, who could move so well without the basketball and be a spot-up shooter. I think Buddy Hield could actually fill that role. He's not a guy that's going to get you 35, 40 points a game like he did the other night in Milwaukee, but he's a guy that I think can be a real threat on the perimeter. I mean, from a fan standpoint, I'm not even watching these games for wins and losses anymore. I'm more watching them for these player performances. I mean, we've seen Lance Stevenson. I still think he's probably the best passer on this team. Dwayne Washington Jr. has been outstanding now that he's gotten more minutes. I've been thoroughly impressed with what he's done. I just think that the individual performances we've seen this season, it's very impressive to me, considering that this season has kind of gone off the rails, the moving parts, but players are still invested right now.
Yeah, they are. And I think the one thing, Dustin, is through 59 games before last night, the Pacers had played the number 1 schedule in the NBA. Their opponent's winning percentage was about 53%. Now, for the final 20-plus games, they have the 30th ranked schedule. Now, again, they're so far out that, they're 20 games under 500. They're well out of the final play-in spot in 10th. They're well out of to make the playoffs in 6th place. So, as you said, it's really all about player development and watching how these players perform. The one thing I've been impressed about Buddy Hield, he's had a couple of really good three-point shooting nights and a couple not so good. I've been impressed with his floor game from a passing standpoint. He had 7 assists last night. He had 8 assists a couple of games ago, and that's really not what Buddy Hield's known for. So I think part of the thing is when you get traded and you have a new opportunity, sometimes you have to look within your game and figure out, how can I be more of an asset to my new team? And I think that's the one thing that I've been impressed is his eyes are more open looking for teammates. Clearly, you still want him to shoot the ball, just like he did in Milwaukee when he hit 8 threes. But I think he's trying to become a better all-around player. I think it also helps for both Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield, who have become good friends, that they both came together. Yeah. And I think that's been very important. And I think even though Tristan Thompson will be gone now, I think just his arrival for the first 4 games helped those 2 guys also from a comfort level. And I know they're happy for him to be able to go on and play in Chicago and give them a chance in the postseason. But all in all, like I said, I think it was a really good opportunity for Indiana. You do lose a 2-time All-Star in Domantas Sabonis, but now it's incumbent upon, when Miles Turner comes back after the All-Star break, how does he fit in now as the center on this team? When Malcolm Brogdon comes back, how does he fit in for these final 20-plus games playing alongside Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield? Those will be questions that we'll have answers to as we get into early March and April.
And one of the things I go back to before the season started, when Rick Carlisle really was hired, he made the comment that he didn't want to just implement a system. He wanted to kind of create a system, an offense and a defense that, would accommodate the players he had on the roster. But considering how kind of more exciting this team has been, do you think that Rick Carlisle does have a system and now he's trying to get players, basically we're not going to be able to win an NBA championship or get into the playoffs and make a deep run with the roster we have and the system I actually want to implement. I mean, do you think that he's got some sort of structure now that he wants to implement, maybe more so than what he led on before the season started?
Yeah, I do think so. And I think he had a hand in what they were trying to do. I mean, when you have invested the kind of money and the years in your head coach and a guy who's had great success, he's won an NBA title, I think you have to allow him to have influence on the type of players you're trying to put together. And yes, he came in and said, hey, I want to see, can I make this 2 big man alignment work? And to some extent, you never got to see the full package, right? Because of all the injuries. I've said this, and now it'll finally go away. It's been about 114 games when you had the availability to see if LeVert, Brogdon, Turner, and Sabonis could play. We only saw it 29 times. How long can you wait? And I think the front office decided, rightly so, we can't wait any longer. We've done this. It's not working. We've got to make some changes. And to your point, Dustin, as a fan, I think that's re-energized the fans. You don't make decisions based on what fans want. But I think in this instance, I think all parties from the front office to ownership to the fans knew, hey, we've got to do something different. We've got to send this out on a new direction. That was what Kevin Pritchard said last week. We have chosen a new direction, and we're very comfortable with the direction we've chosen. And I think the fans are too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there was a point where I'm turning on the game and I'm finding other things to do. I had reached that point in the season, and this is not a knock on Domantas Sabonis, but his style, he's a great player, 2-time All-Star, like you said, but at the same time, feeding the post and watching him, go up for a shot from 2 feet out isn't the most exciting, especially when you're, as you mentioned, you're 15 to 20 games below 500. But now the interesting thing to me is we talk about this exciting new brand of basketball, and last night the Pacers make just 4 shots from behind the arc on 20 attempts. It was probably their worst 3-point shooting night, and yet they still got the win over Washington. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how this team kind of gels together after the All-Star break, some time off, and see if there's even a new energy after this week-long break.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons they had a season high in points in the paint. They had 74, and a lot of that was because of movement, player movement, ball movement. They had they might have had 5 to 8 dunks last night. And if you've watched Pacers basketball over the years, that just hasn't happened. Isaiah Jackson, before he got hurt and tweaked his ankle again, he's had, I think, 8 or 9 alley-oop dunks this year. The Pacers had 8 the entire year last year. So we're not saying it's all about show and flash, but clearly that energizes people. That's fun to watch.
It's attitude.
And it is entertainment, right? Sports is entertainment. We want to be entertained. And so if you can put that package together and build toward being better and winning games, that's really important.
What's up next for you, Chris? I know you're still right in the middle of the season.
Yep. Well, 22 games left. Like I said, get a little break here. We'll return to action a week from tomorrow. 2 games at home, Oklahoma City and Boston. And then the Pacers hit the road for a couple of games in Orlando. And that's a 4-game road trip. But we have made the decision as an organization, as Valley Sports. We haven't traveled all year. And we just said, with 10 road games left, why worry?
What's the point now?
Let's just focus on, continuing to do our broadcast the way we've done them. I think we put out a really good product. People
Absolutely.
Can't tell if we're there or not, but we'll be back on the road next year. There's no question about that. We played Washington last night. They weren't on the road as well with NBC Sports Washington. So, we'll just get through the year and then focus on player development and then be excited for the NBA draft, because I think the draft and free agency and the trade deadline going forward in the summer, it's going to be an exciting summer for the Pacers. And I'm not sure we could have said that about a month ago. So I think now I feel re-energized. I think the fan base feels re-energized. And like I said, the building was hopping last night, nearly 15,000 for a team that's 20-40. So I feel very good with the direction that the team is taking.
How did Thomas Bryant do last night?
Thomas Bryant, he did all right. He's coming off that ACL injury. He missed the last 60 games last year and the first 40 this year. So that's 100 games that he's missed. But he's slimmed down, looks to be in good shape. I'm sure he's really targeting next year as when he'll really return to play. But he was in the starting lineup and I thought played pretty well.
And you mentioned that Chris Mack, former Louisville coach, was at the game last night.
Yeah, Chris Mack was there, had a chance to visit with him. He had his little boy with him. So, when he stepped down at Louisville, gives him more family time and more opportunity to see other teams play.
Dustin?
Oh, I had nothing important really to say other than I'm slightly disappointed that Chris won't be in Orlando because I'm on the verge of considering going down there because the way the schedule works out is the Pacers have 2 back-to-back games. And then also that weekend, the next day in Orlando, the next day is the start of the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great, great golf tournament. So I've got family in Orlando. I'm thinking about making the trip down there. I thought maybe Chris and I could tee it up, but maybe we'll just have to wait till next year.
Yeah, we'll wait till next year. We'll get it done.
Chris, I can't thank you enough, brother. Look forward to next week.
Guys.
You bet. The great Chris Denari joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Pacers, brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Sellersburg. If you're down in Southern Indiana, you need that championship smile, go see our good friend Dr. J. He'll give it to you. We're back with more here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the good folks from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
That would have been a first if you did your live read twice in a row. You caught yourself, though.
I didn't mean to say brought to you by. I was trying to do the other one, but.
I'll BRB, fam.
Sounds good, mate.
What do you say?
He'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Man, I can't wait to get these stupid headphones out after the show's over.
Yeah. What's wrong?
Just Q-tip every day, boy, right as soon as I get done.
Oh, yeah.
It's raining.
It's raining here, too.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back, Spicy Schutte.
Howdy. Oh, really?
What?
He's just talking to himself.
Jim said and then he stopped.
I always think out loud.
Oh, man. The thing about not having my camera on is I can stretch and not look like a complete idiot on this thing.
Well, I'd have to turn my camera off to not look like a complete idiot, period.
It's been a long week, fellas.
Brother, when your week starts off and you have a 9:00 game,
yeah, that's a good point.
That sets the tone.
Yeah, I'm so glad that was the last one. I mean, scheduled 9:00 game. I know that can happen in the postseason.
Well, if they get into any tournament, yeah, they will definitely.
Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends at Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Are you having problems sleeping? Aurora Specialty Sleep can take care of you right there in Indianapolis. Dr. Steve Green, Bob Knight's first recruit, along with Brian Evans. It's a simple device, fits in a teeth whitening tray container. You never know, people would never even know you have it in. But if you have problems with snoring and sleeping, look them up, AuroraSpecialtySleep.com. Back, Dustin Schutte. Basketball coming up this weekend. What are your plans, man? Mr. Golf? Go play some golf?
Well, I was going to play some golf today, but we got a wind advisory, and I don't need any help losing my golf ball when there's no wind. So we're going to – and we got scattered storms throughout the day too, so I'm going to avoid that. But I'm probably just going to take in – I mean, if it's nice enough on Sunday, I might hit the links, but we got a pretty good slate of basketball over the weekend. I mean, this is the time of year when you can just sit on your couch from about noon until midnight and just watch – basketball all day long because the games are so meaningful. These are when conference races are in full swing. You've got what I was just looking the other day, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 6 Big Ten teams within 2 games of the top of the Big Ten standing. So that's going to be a tight race. You've got bubble watch going on. There's just so much this time of year in college basketball. It's why the last month of the season is always so much fun because you got the conference regular season races going on. You've got teams making a push to get into the tournament. Just a lot of fun.
Well, if you'd like to get tournament practice for watching TV during the day, there's a game at 4 p.m. today. 4 o'clock in the afternoon on BTN, no less. Minnesota at Penn State. I guess that's because no one wants to watch Minnesota at Penn State. Why on earth is that game at 4 o'clock today? I have no earthly idea.
You know what? Some of these, I don't know. I really don't know if this is a rescheduled game or not, but BTN has made a commitment to other, I mean, like women's basketball, wrestling, some of these other sports that we've seen. And when you make that big of a commitment, there might be a time issue. I don't know, because there's no other men's basketball games on Big Ten Network tonight. Michigan, Iowa is an ESPN spot. So that would be my guess, is because there's some sort of broadcasting conflict, and you're not going to see Fox or ESPN or Big Ten Network or whatever media company it is miss out on an opportunity to broadcast a game. So that would be my guess as to why it's 4 p.m.
Well, not a lot else to do today. Actually, I do have something to do today at 4. So, well, maybe there'll be a TV there where I go.
There you go.
So something that's better than having nothing to do. But that's the great thing. One of the things I love about the tournament, games all day. It's like a Saturday, man. You can start and go until 2 in.the if you wanted to. That's not what I generally do, but because I'm usually doing something. But on those rare times where I can do that. But I've been reading.
That's nice. That's a nice thing about working from home is, during the NCAA tournament or during the Masters, or, if you golf fans out there during day baseball games, you can work while you're watching the game. So it's awesome.
Dabney asks, why is Jaden Ivey struggling at all of a sudden? Does he have NBA draft injury concerns? I mean, that's
a great question.
I don't follow Purdue that tightly. So Purdue kind of goes as Jaden Ivey goes, but because
they didn't last night.
The bigs, right? Generally, last night they were able to depend upon their bigs, which that has not always been the case if they don't have someone to guide them, and which was probably a good sign for Purdue last night that they were able to get by without Jaden Ivey being the guy.
I mean, there are times, if you go back and following the Big Ten, there have been times where you've seen players like Johnny Davis not play particularly well. There's been times, you go back a few years, Carson Edwards. You've seen Kofi Coburn at times has gotten into foul trouble. Sometimes you just hit these little peaks and valleys. And so it's usually pretty stunning when you see it with your star player. But he didn't play, I don't think, the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game last night, which, by the way, I think is a good sign for Purdue. If you are able to win a game, I don't care who it's against, with your star player on the bench on the road, that's a good sign. Indiana could use a player like that. I mean, they could use that sort of chemistry where, you're not going to be
they're missing.
That's what they could have had a few nights ago in the same situation with Northwestern. Can you figure out a way to win a game when your best player is not on the floor or not performing, and they couldn't do it? So I think it's good for Purdue, but it is concerning that it's happening right now. But if you go back a few years ago, look at what Carson Edwards, how much he struggled kind of right before the NCAA tournament and then in that Big Ten tournament, and he had the NCAA tournament, that rivals what UConn's Kemba Walker did. So you never truly know, but sometimes it happens with star players. It's just surprising to see it.
Tenerology points out that Purdue hasn't had a day off in 23 days. They have played 7 games in 18 days. Pretty good. That's a pretty good roll.
Pretty good clip. That'll wear you down.
Yeah. But you know what? You got to do what you got to do. Michigan, don't they still have 2 games they have to make up?
Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've rescheduled. All those games have been rescheduled. And so I think that both they and Michigan State now have an extra game. I think most Big Ten teams only have 2 games in March, but I think those are 3 games because they rescheduled a game that was postponed because of COVID concerns.
Well, they're at Iowa tonight. If you would like to watch the Wolverines, that is a 7:00 game on ESPN. They'll be in Carver Hawkeye Arena, and big game for Michigan because they need every game. They're also like Indiana, but different. They're kind of on the rise a little bit, but they still have to win games. They're behind. They didn't start the season very well. They've missed a couple of games, but they've been playing better. Iowa is a winnable game for anyone on the road. Indiana could have won there. Did not get that job done, but this is a big game for Michigan. If they can secure not only a victory over an Iowa team that right now is a projected tournament team, a road win, that's big time for the Wolverines.
I think this is a big game for both teams. I mean, you look at what Iowa has coming up, and if you don't get a win here, you have to go on the road against Ohio State, and then you have to play Michigan State at home. And I know the Spartans aren't playing particularly well right now, but you never really want to play them. And then you close out the season with 2 straight road games against Michigan and at Illinois. So I know, as I said earlier in the show, Iowa's kind of firmly in the tournament right now, probably in that 7 to 9 seed range. But at the same time, they could easily find themselves on the bubble, especially if they don't get a win tonight and you go and you lose 3 straight. They're 7-6 in the Big Ten. By the time we meet next week, they could be, 7-8, 7-9. So this is a big game, I think, for both teams in their tournament push.
A question there from Dabney. What is the Michigan compared to Indiana in quad 1 wins? Good question. I have to pull that up and look through that.
Do you know the only time I know about quad 1 wins is when it's brought up during the broadcast? I don't know any other time. I don't look it up. That's why I knew Rutgers off the top of my head, because they mentioned it about 10 times during the broadcast, and I still don't remember. It's either 6 or 7 quad 1 wins now.
Well, I can get to it. It's just going to take me a second because you're looking for 2 teams that I know are way down the list as you slowly run your eyes over them. But I think there's Indiana. Indiana is 2-5 in quad 1 wins. They're 2-3 in quad 2 wins. So
that's not
4-8 over quad 1 and quad 2. Michigan right there, they're 2-6, but 3-3. So they're 5-9. So kind of similar. What I say, Indiana was 5-8. Yeah, they have. Michigan has one more loss. 4-8. They have one more win, but one more loss. So kind of right there the same. Indiana can certainly use some help. They are Michigan's number 35 in the net rankings. Indiana's 41. They're around that in the daggone it, whatever, what's his name? KenPom. In the KenPoms are down there around 40 something in KenPom as well.
See, this is what annoys me about college basketball. There's 37 different freaking ranking systems. None of them, to me, really, whatever. I just want to yell like Homer Simpson yelling at the scientist walking by or the student walking by and yell nerd. That's what I want to do half the time I hear all of these metrics and that kind of stuff.
I agree that you have to take some of it with a grain of salt, but like these quad wins, there's value in that because
I agree with
that. And that's one that I do like, because it gives you an apples to apples kind of, especially for Big Ten teams. You don't have the same preseason schedule, but you're damn well having the same conference schedule because you're playing each other, and there's a lot of ranked teams in there, a lot of opportunities for those teams. So Indiana need to add to that resume. They're in the tournament right now. They just have to, like I said, there's 3 very winnable games that they can win, and they should be able to win a game in the Big Ten tournament, but that's not going to be easy because whoever they're playing is going to be scratching and clawing. And anytime Indiana plays a team that scratches and claws for 40 minutes, they're in danger of losing because I haven't seen Indiana scratch and claw for 40 minutes themselves this season.
So I think I would 3 winnable games. I would say 3 games that you have to win, and then if you succeed that Indiana's not going to beat Purdue on the road, which I mean, Purdue's almost lost to Maryland. They've already lost to Wisconsin at home.
It's a different thing. When Indiana comes there, it's just the mindset. It's a whole different
deal. It is a different thing. I wouldn't completely rule it. I give them like a 10% chance. Now, but I think that Ohio State is still a very winnable game too. I think they match up really well when they're at full strength because I think Race Thompson is athletic enough, and the combination of Trace Jackson Davis, I think that they can match up well with EJ Liddell. We saw them; they clobbered Ohio State at home.
They handled Liddell. They kept him at bay.
Right.
And Indiana's coming off of a tough loss, and it was coming off of Trace Jackson Davis having some extra days to rest. Well, now they're going to have a little bit more time, and they know what they need to do. Can they come out? Can they play better team basketball? And can Trace Jackson Davis sustain that level of play that he had in the last game and the last game against Ohio State? Because Race Thompson's going to play. He's going to show up. There's not been a game he hasn't shown up this season. Indiana's guard play, again, if they can get some guard play, they can go on the road and beat Ohio State without question. They can do it. Yeah. It's in their own hands.
Oh, absolutely. And so that's why I think that there are 3 must-win games, and you throw in 1 more winnable game if you can find a way to beat Ohio State on the road. That's really gonna bump your confidence up heading into those 3 games because. And then let's say they do this, and this is going to live up to the half glass, half full Schutte moniker that has been anointed apparently. But then you get 4 straight wins, and you're heading into Mackey Arena in the final game of the season. You got some confidence in there. That bumps your stock up a little bit more. That bumps your confidence up. But the problem is they've lost 4 straight, and we haven't seen that kind of killer instinct that we've seen at times, like we saw against Ohio State, like we saw against Purdue. And we've seen in some of these other games throughout the course of the season. It just has been lacking. Somebody's going to have to step up here in these next 2-3 days and say, I'm the leader of this team. This is what we're going to do. And if that doesn't happen, then all of a sudden those 4 winnable games turn into maybe 1 winnable game.
Baylor has the most quad one wins, 9-3 on the season. Who do you think in the Big Ten has the most? Unless you're looking at it. Wisconsin, 8-4. They are followed by Purdue, 7-3. Keep going down until I get to Rutgers at 5-3, which bodes very well for them, which will shoot them into the tournament, I think. Go ahead.
I think they're up to 6 now. I think last night got them 6.
Okay, well then that would be even better. Illinois on this list is at 5-4.
Whew.
Michigan State 4-4, and Michigan State has got a tough schedule coming. Let's see. I keep on going down the list. UCLA, they're down. They're 3-3. Not a lot, but that doesn't.
Not a lot.
No, it's easy, much easier schedule. Obviously, Maryland 3-8. Wow, that hurts.
That kind of surprises
We got to wrap
me.
it up. Hey, but there you go. Let's see. I'm looking down the last few teams. Then you get to Indiana at 2-5 and Michigan, but Notre Dame right behind them at 2-5 also. A win over Notre Dame. So not bad. They've got work to do, and they can do it. Hopefully they can get to it. Man, it was another fun day. I can't thank everybody enough. Kyle Neddenriep, of course, from the Indy Star, Chris Denari of the Indiana Pacers, Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts, and, of course, Spicy Schutte, Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Make sure you give him a follow as well. John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. But we will be back again tomorrow to do it all again, and looking forward to it. We'll get you planned out for the weekend ahead. And we have some gaming talk tomorrow. I'll give you some picks and all that. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.